Breaking tonight, Syria's on fire, and the unthinkable might just happen. Opposition forces in a pretty bold and what seems to be a highly coordinated offensive have captured key cities and are now at the doorstep of Damascus. The question isn't if Assad will fall, it's likely when. Now, President Trump has weighed in, calling for the United States on X to stay out of this fight. Quote, "This is not our fight. Let's play it out," is exactly what he said. But here's the reality. When Syria burns, the entire Middle East feels the heat. And that heat is already reaching Israel. Let me explain. For years, Assad's regime has been a puppet of Russia and Iran. And now both are stretched very thin. With Russia, it's losing over 600,000 soldiers in the Ukraine. They're in no position to bail Assad out, although I hear Assad has now run to Russia and is hiding there. And Iran is pulling its military leaders from Syria, too. So here's the kicker. The opposition fighters advancing in Damascus aren't exactly freedom-loving Democrats. Let me explain. These are very dangerous Islamist groups led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or the HTS, and their leader, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani. And these groups are extremely dangerous. And tonight I'm going to break down the tactics driving this offensive and what it means for Assad, and most importantly, why Trump's stance matters for America, Israel, and the Middle East. Let's talk about the tactics. These opposition fighters, led by HTS, they're moving pretty quickly, and they're moving with some precision here. Sweeping through key cities like Aleppo and Hama, and now they're encircling Damascus itself. And this, I just want to say this isn't some random push. This is textbook insurgency operations. Where's my Green Berets out there? And what makes this moment different from previous offensives, it's the scale and the coordination. And HTS has united, magically, various rebel factions under its command for the first time in years. And the rebels have achieved a major territorial gain in a matter of just weeks, forcing Assad's forces to retreat in what I can only describe as a collapse. These tactics are familiar. This is guerrilla-style urban operations warfare. There's not a ton of accuracy out there, but there's a ton of aggression with the firing, leveraging the chaos in Assad's weakened military lines. And I've seen this before. It reminds me of operations in the IDF. You know, you go in, you do a strategic select operation, you do a hit, and all of a sudden you got these idiots firing in the streets. The difference is that we're more aggressive, we shoot straighter, and we're also going to appear wherever you're not looking. But here's the key difference. Unlike Israel's operations and what we deal with in the West Bank, these rebels aren't operating under a centralized long-term strategy for governance like Hamas or these other terror groups that we deal with. And that creates vulnerabilities. And once they take Damascus, if they take Damascus, what's next? A power vacuum. And history shows us that power vacuums in the Middle East never end well. And let's not forget HTS and its leader, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani. These guys are Islamist extremists. They're not fighting for democracy. They're fighting to establish an Islamic state. And that's why this isn't just Syria's problem. This is everyone's problem. Now let's talk the shift to Assad's so-called allies. Russia's been Assad's lifeline since Obama's infamous Red Line debacle in 2013. If you don't know what it is, Google it. But with Russia bogged down in the Ukraine and suffering massive losses, they just can't protect him anymore. And then there's Iran. They've propped up Assad for years, using Syria as a base to smuggle weapons to Hezbollah. But Israel's been rocking those smuggling lines with selective airstrikes and special operations. But now we're hearing reports that the Iranian commanders are being pulled out of Syria. Why? Because Iran is stretched too thin. Israel just gave them a beatdown. And managing its own domestic unrest and proxy conflicts across the region. They're just too busy right now. It's too much on their plate. So here's the bottom line. Assad is running out of friends, and the enemies at his gates know it. This isn't just a military collapse. It's a geopolitical earthquake that could redraw the map of the entire Middle East. And with that instability comes a ripple effect that Israel is already preparing for. Israel kvar machin tochniot. We're already planning operations, which is how we have to work here. We've got to stay in front of these threats. So what does that mean for Israel? How do we stay in front of those threats? Let me give you a little breakdown. So first, Israel's military has already been put on high alert. Their defense minister, Israel Katz, and IDF Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, are preparing for any fallout here. And the IDF has reinforced the Golan Heights, and we've seen strategic airstrikes targeting Hezbollah positions in Syria. These have been ongoing, and they're getting even more stepped up now. Second, the risk of the security vacuum is enormous. I can't stress that enough. And if Assad falls, who fills the void? HTS and the other extremist groups like it. And make no mistake, HTS may rebrand itself as a governing force in areas that it controls, but the roots are Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and their ideology hasn't changed. Shum davar lo mishtane, like we say in Hebrew. And there's another layer here, weapons. Syria's arsenal includes advanced missile systems, potentially chemical weapons, I would say yes, and other high-grade military equipment. And Israel can't allow any of this to fall into the hands of HTS or Hezbollah. Finally, there's the humanitarian crisis here. Thousands of civilians are fleeing this conflict zone. And Israel has long managed these crises very delicately because we do not target civilians, providing aid while ensuring its borders remain secure. But with this kind of chaos, spillover becomes inevitable. There's no way around it. That's why Israel's watching closely. The last thing we want is a group like HTS establishing a base near our northern border and gaining control of Assad's weapons and stockpiles. The reality is this: Israel's ready for anything, and we have to be, because the threats on the northern border are growing and metastasizing every day. This episode of the Aaron Cohen Show is brought to you by the Cherry's Deep Concealment Holster. This is the same holster I trained Keanu on for the John Wick franchise. It runs below the waistband. It means it's never going to come off you. That clip runs parallel to the top of the gun once it's seated, rides below the waistline, which means there's zero digging into your gut. It also means that the gun's not going to fall off you if you have to go hands-on and you don't want the pistol to come out. Also, lightning fast draw with just a little bit of training. Go to cherriescounterterror.com. Grab yourself one of these bad boys. There's a bit of a lead time right now due to demand, but pre-order one of these things. We'll have them out pretty soon. And finally, carry with comfort and proper concealment. Now, I want to talk about Trump's post on X. Here's where I'm at with that. Honestly, he gets it. I'm an American. I'm an American Israeli, but I'm an American through and through. And he said the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. And you know what? He's absolutely right. Syria is a disaster. It's a soup sandwich. And it's been for over a decade. It's a brutal, multi-sided civil war. The alternative is either Bashar al-Assad, a dictator propped up by Russia and Iran, or Islamic groups like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, who's got ties with Al-Qaeda. So Trump is tapping into the fundamental truth here. There's no good side in the fight for America. And getting involved in Syria means choosing between the lesser of two evils. And we've seen how that plays out in Iraq. We saw it in Afghanistan. The costly, endless wars that we probably shouldn't have been fighting in the first place that leave us with more problems than we started with. And Trump is also reminding us of something critical. The United States is not the world's police. Syria isn't our fight. And there's no direct threat to the U.S. security here that justifies any immediate intervention. His statement reflects the kind of strategic clarity, if you will, that we don't often hear and certainly haven't heard in the last 8 years. And sometimes the best move is to stay out. And instead, Trump's approach, I believe, offers a smarter alternative. Focus on securing our allies like Israel and strengthening our own defenses. Let the regional actors take the lead. And if Assad falls, it's going to be regional players like Turkey, Iran, and others who have to deal with the immediate fallout, not the United States. And this is where Trump's X post is spot on. It's not about ignoring the situation. It's about choosing your battles. And Syria's a freaking mess. But it's not America's mess to clean up. So here's what I see coming next. I see 3 scenarios. That's why you guys tune into this channel. The rebels take out Damascus, but without unified leadership. Chaos ensues. Extremist groups like HTS move in, filling the vacuum. 2, Assad holds on to power, but barely, like barely. His regime is so weakened that he becomes irrelevant, opening the door to endless proxy wars. 3, Syria gets partitioned. We've seen this before. Multi-factions carving up the country like a butcher, each backed by regional powers like Iran, Turkey, and even Russia. And none of these scenarios are good for Israel or the region. I want to say that. And that's why Israel needs to stay extremely vigilant and extremely on top of their intelligence, ready to respond to any threat at any moment. But it's all good. Israel is a master at that intelligence game, and they're going to continue to watch closely. The Middle East is a chessboard, and right now Syria is the queen under siege. That's how I look at it. And what happens there is going to ripple across the regions for years to come. And for Israel, the lesson is clear. Israel can't rely on anybody else to secure their future, whether it's taking out weapon convoys bound for Hezbollah or defending our borders. Israel has to and will always lead from the front. And for the rest of the world, I say this. Pay attention, because what's happening in Damascus won't stay in Damascus. It never does. Zaloni Sharsham, like we say in Hebrew, it ain't staying there. Hey, are you guys a fan of Israeli special operations? Kind of blown away by how we've been conducting operations over the last year? Grab yourself a copy of my best-selling memoir, Brotherhood of Warriors, down in the description below. It's a memoir of my time as the first American to serve in one of Israel's top counterterrorism units, the elite Mistaravim unit. This is the unit that dresses up as Arabs, goes undercover to bring terrorists back to Israel. Hit the link down in the description. Grab yourself an autographed copy. I have a limited amount available. Grab yourself a signed copy today. If you guys are enjoying this and you want that continued unfiltered analysis like you're seeing here, do me a favor. Subscribe to the Aaron Cohen Show. Join the conversation. Comment down below. I want to hear what you guys think. I appreciate you guys for tuning in on this one. Again, this episode of the Aaron Cohen Show, sponsored by the Cherry's Deep Concealment Holster. It's the same holster I trained Keanu on for the John Wick franchise. This thing runs below the waistband. It's never going to fall off you if you have to go hands-on. Also, lightning fast draw with just a little bit of training. Go to cherriescounterterror.com. Grab yourself one of these bad boys. There's a bit of a lead time right now due to demand. But pre-order one now. You will absolutely love this thing. Fits all double stack 9 and 40 Glocks and a ton of other guns. Go to cherriescounterterror.com. Grab one of these. I want to thank you guys for watching this episode. I'm going to continue to monitor this one very closely. I'll be back as this thing develops. I'm Aaron Cohen. You're watching the Aaron Cohen Show, and I will see you guys soon.